A young boy named Kageyama Shigeo, aka Mob, is an 8th grade student with strong psychic powers. He seeks for a normal and peaceful life, but cannot control his powers in the state of anger. As a result, he sought the help of his master, Arataka Reigen, who is a fake physicist and utilizes Mob's abilities for pocket change. It says the world is filled with strange phenomena, and when people face them, they are thrown into the dark depth of fear. However, some people known as psychics engage in combat with those phenomena. Reigen Arataka is one of those psychics, actually a fake one, but runs a spirit consultation office. One day, Reigen and his clients visit an old building to exorcise an evil spirit. He uses his special attack and throws a handful of table salt at the spirit, but the spirit is only annoyed by his ineffective attack. Then Reigen reveals his ultimate attack and calls his student named Shigo Kageyama, who is indeed a strong psychic but has a poor academic and co-curricular background, to come over and defeat the spirit. Mob arrives there and exorcises the spirit instantly with his one attack. Really though, who needs physical power when you have such amazing psychic powers? The following day, Reigen gets another job of exorcising the evil spirits at Honaido Tunnel, so he calls Mob again and asks him to come with him. Reigen rushes back after entering the tunnel, asking Mob why he didn't enter. Mob says that he thinks that his master has everything under control. Mob destroys the small evil spirits and leaves the boss to Reigen as they enter the tunnel. Reigen gets frightened and shows the boss of small evil spirits the legendary picture of Saitama as protection. When Mob shrinks the boss, he tells them that there's a strong evil spirit down the tunnel. When Mob goes down the tunnel and encounters that evil spirit, he exorcises it instantly and returns home with his master. Because of these incidents, Mob's rage becomes 27% towards explosion. Fun little fact, Mob Psycho was also originally written by the same guy who wrote One Punch Man, Yosuke Murata. His illustrations are interesting, to say the least. The next day at the school, the Telepathy Club loses a member, and the club is in danger of disbanding until they find a new club member. Hearing this, the club leader, Tome Kurata, and other club members desperately search for a new member while the club member Inukawa drags Mob into the club room and convinces him to join them. Mob refuses as Reigen wants Mob to focus on his job instead of useless clubs. Later, Reigen and Mob, dressed as girls, head toward the private all-girls high school to exorcise an evil spirit. The guards stop Reigen at the gate while Mob goes on to meet his clients alone. He meets two schoolgirls, who appear to be his clients. They tell him about the supernatural phenomena happening at the school and start looking for the evil spirit. When they reach the basketball court, the evil spirit attacks Mob, but he defeats him with just one blow. Later that night, Mob thinks of joining the Telepathy Club and goes to the club the following day. When he's about to join the club, the vice president of the student council appears and shows the Body Improvement Club their club room. Watching this, Mob remembers his poor physical abilities and requests to join the Body Improvement Club instead. After joining the club, Mob starts training with them, but he faints easily on the ground. The Telepathy Club can stay in the club's room as Body Improvement Club only need it to store their equipment. The captain of the club, Musashi Goda, takes the fainted Mob to the room and hands it over to the Telepathy Club. They tell Mob that he cannot become popular even if he builds some muscles. After school, a woman wearing a smiling mask stops Mob and tells him that she can help him become popular. She takes him to an underground secret meeting of LOL, where the leader of the meeting, named Dimple, tries to make everyone laugh by putting a smiling mask on them. But he cannot change Mob's serious face through any of his tricks. Knowing that Mob is a psychic, Dimple reveals his true spirit form and orders his followers to kill. Having kept his emotion for so long, this stress causes Mob's rage to reach 100%, unleashing a huge amount of psychic power and exorcising Dimple. Tenga Onigawara from Salt Middle School faces his rival Black Vinegar Middle School's gang leader, Tsuyoshi Idano and his men. Tenga beats Idano and his men, but is defeated by a second-year student named Teru. The following day, the weakest spirit of Dimple appears and claims to have reformed. He begs to team up with Mob and promises he won't do anything bad anymore. Later at school, Tenga and his men ask the Body Improvement Club to help them crush Teru, but they refuse by saying that fighting is absurd. He devises a plan to get Mob kidnapped by Black Vinegar School in order to enrage Body Improvement Club to attack Tsuyoshi Idano and his men. When they take Mob as a hostage, Dimple urges Mob to use his psychic powers to escape, but he refuses to use them on people. In order to rescue Mob, the Body Improvement Club defeats most of their men, but is unable to defeat Teru, who has psychic powers just like Mob. Mob is standing there and tells Teru not to use his abilities on other people. Teru becomes shocked to see another Esper, like Mob, and attacks to force him to show his psychic abilities. But Mob refuses to attack as Reagan has taught him never to use his powers to hurt humans. When Teru increases his attacks, Dimple tries to protect Mob with his remaining power, but Teru exorcises him immediately. After that, Teru corners Mob into the school building and throws some knives towards Mob, but he deflects them using his psychic powers. A knife flies back and completely shaves the top of Teru's head. Teru gets angry, turns his tie into a sword and starts attacking Mob, but he keeps protecting himself. Mob realizes and tells him that Teru hates him because they are both psychics, and know that they are nothing without their psychic powers. Hearing this, Teru chokes him against the wall with brute force, and Mob falls to the ground unconscious. Mob loses his anger, reaches 100% towards the explosion, and defeats Teru. After the match, Mob realizes that he couldn't keep his words as he's used his powers against a human, which results in 100% sadness, and then he uses his powers to rebuild the school. Later that night, Mob's brother, Ritsu Kageyama, watches the incident at the Black Vinegar School on the television. He's envious of Mob's power as he doesn't have any of these psychic powers and has a nightmare about Mob, saying that he can also use them. The following day, the whole school talks about the incident in Black Vinegar School. Mob is sitting in the Body Improvement Club with his classmate Ichimazato. She asks Mob if there's any Esper other than him. Tomei overhears the conversation and asks Mob to go out with him and look for other telepathic people. When he goes out with her a couple of times, he notices an adult Esper in the crowd, but as he feels dangerous, he doesn't tell Tomei about it. On the other hand, the president of the student council, Shinji, with the help of Ritsu, frames our gang leader Tenga for stealing and being a pervert. After school, a man named Kenji invites Ritsu to a psychic research institute known as the Awakening Lab. At the lab, he notices that all Esper there have minimal psychic powers. He gets frustrated at himself by remembering his evil doing and leaves by saying he doesn't have psychic powers. On his way, he sees a balloon type thing and notices that the balloon is the evil spirit Dimple. Well, seriously, somehow Dimple was still alive. When he leaves, Kenji picks up the twisted spoon and realizes that he does have psychic powers. After hearing of white tea poison defeated the shadow leader Teru, gang leaders from several schools decide to take him on. Meanwhile, Ritsu is baffled to see Dimple, who no longer enters the house due to his limited abilities. However, he manipulates Ritsu into believing he has psychic powers. Do you really believe Dimple's claim of Ritsu having psychic powers? Forget this jelly-like floating spirit. So, Dimple deceives Ritsu and enters his body, but owing to his limited abilities, he cannot control him. However, he is able to control the output and convinces Ritsu to believe him. One day, Ritsu meets Teru after defeating other school kids and wants to fight him, but soon abandons the idea, understanding the limitations of his powers. Though the powers are not his own, it's all Dimple's plot. While walking along the street, a con artist convinces Mob and shows him a costly vase, which she later, by pushing Mob, breaks and demands money. Soon after, Mob's master enters and reverses the scene by charging the same amount of money, saying that she owes Mob for psychological harm. Shinji and Ritsu continue their pursuit of Tenga Onigawara, but a gang leader from another school appears at the school's gate one day. Ritsu confronts and defeats him. Various gang members beat Shinji on his way home, who suspect him of being white tea poison. Poor Shinji, got beaten over nothing. Ritsu is mobbed by various gang leaders who mistake him for white tea poison, but Ritsu defeats them in seconds. As he finishes the fight, Mob appears and inquires about Ritsu's actions. Teru brings Mob to Ritsu, where Ritsu attacks Mob with a wind blow, but seeing him using psychic powers, Mob congratulates him. Yusuke Sakurai entered the Awakening Lab and got information on Shigeo Kageyama, whom they mistook for Ritsu, and dispatched Megumu Koyama to track him down. When Megumu confirms Shigeo's identity as Ritsu, he arrives to take him, but he runs into Mob, who refuses to allow anybody to take his brother. Mob's animosity reaches 100% after Megumu's multiple attacks and beatings, and he defeats Megumu. Megumu, now realizing they're unable to defeat Mob, sprays on him, making Mob fall unconscious. Mob stands up unconscious, which shocks Megumu, who then leaves immediately by taking Ritsu with him. What else can he do now? Mob awakens at Taruki's, who informs him of everything he needs to know about the Man from Claw, an organization founded by deadly espers with over 100 members. They brainwash young espers and turn them into their own troops. Mob wonders why they're following Ritsu, and Dimple thinks of it because of Awakening Lab, where the information about Shigeo got leaked. When they arrive at the lab, they discover the location has been attacked. After interrogating Kenji Mitsura, they discover the organization had mistaken Ritsu as Shigeo and took him along with other lab espers. Ritsu and the other espers are led through a forest by Megumi and Yusuke to a secret facility. In the Claw's 7th Division building, Yusuke gets annoyed as their orders were to capture the strongest espers, and Megumi didn't bring Mob with him. Terada overhears them and leaves, fully prepared to apprehend Mob. When Teru is offering to help Mob, Terada shows up, but he ends up letting his defenses down and is quickly defeated. Teru tortures him and Terada spills everything. Meanwhile, the upper echelon members of the 7th Claws Division have a meeting where they get to know about the selection of HQ base members by their leader, who's coming back to Japan soon. Ritsu and other espers pretend to not have powers in front of Muto, which results in one of the twin espers, Kaido's, death. Later, Daiichi, Kaido's twin brother, claims his brother is alive and he's communicating with him telepathically. Ritsu and other espers plan to escape, and everyone gets surprised to see Ritsu's powers, which are stronger than other kids. Like you, I was also surprised to see Ritsu's powers, because now it's not because of Dimple. The powers are his own. Good for him. Terada takes Mob and Teru to their base, but finds the chance to escape and confronts them, but is quickly wiped out by Mob's simple attack. When the leaders of the upper echelon know they have invaders, Megumi goes out to confront Mob and kill him this time. When Mob, Teru, and Dimple encounter them, Mob, stating he doesn't have time, uses his powers by slamming Megumi against the walls until he passes out. When Megumi doesn't move anymore, the upper echelon members realize they're up against someone powerful this time. Ritsu and the rest of the espers find Kaido and manage to free him. Teru, Dimple, and Mob decide to split up, but Dimple ends up in a strange-looking door where upper echelon member Matsuo wants to catch him, which Dimple finds as a severe danger. Miyagawa then encounters Teru, who, with his engulfing flames, tries to burn Teru down, but he ends up burning in his own flames. Soon, Yusuke Sakurai appears to distract Teru, and Muraki knocks out Teru from behind. Ritsu takes out some weaklings, but Sho Suzuki appears and Ritsu decides to take him on while the others escape. Meanwhile, Mob has been found by Mukai's dolls, but as he destroys them, she calls Tsuchiya, who starts fighting Mob. Elsewhere, Dimple faces Matsuo, who uses his evil spirits against Dimple. Tsuchiya gets defeated, and Ishiguro sends out Takeuchi, but Mob also beats him easily. As Mob continues to go, he finds Ritsu poorly defeated, but as soon as Muto reaches Mob, Mob's animosity goes to 100. He reverses Muto's illusion, resulting in self-unconsciousness. Sho brings Ritsu and Mob to the division head, and Matsuo appears shortly after, claiming he has grabbed Dimple and has placed him in a jar with 100 evil spirits, from which only one will survive. Man, they're adding battle royales to everything these days. By seeing Dimple's face, you can feel his pain. Our JoJo stan deserves better than this. Mob dreams of getting lost in the woods with Ritsu and figuring the way out with Ritsu's smartness. He awakens in a room with Ritsu and Teru and gets relieved to see Ritsu unharmed. Teru informs them of the room's uniqueness, which doesn't let them use their powers. However, Mob stays confident, believing Ritsu will come up with some ideas as he's smart even without powers, making Ritsu emotional. Upper echelon members intend to make them their new members after brainwashing them, but Sho Suzuki informs them they'll get recruited at the HQ. Meanwhile, Arataka follows Mob's GPS to a building where guards mistake him for their boss and lead him to the room where Mob, Ritsu, and Teru are being held captive. Arataka has no powers, still, he's cooler than everyone else. Anyway, Arataka makes the guards release them, and while heading out, Upper Echelon shows up after hearing the news of the boss coming. Mob prepares to fight Ishiguro, but Arataka stops him, recalling him not to use powers and dropkicks Ishiguro. Arataka decides to fight with Upper Echelon members, but he ends up enraging them. Arataka's plan to win an argument with every person fails here. After releasing his powers, Ishiguro and the other members fight Mob, Ritsu, and Teruki. Arataka keeps telling Mob not to fight with them and run, while Teruki and Ritsu remind him to use his power. Mob's murderous intent reaches 100% as he sees his close people being hurt and doesn't want them to die. But Arataka slaps him, bringing him back to his senses and telling him not to do it since he'll suffer later. Mob remembers how he met Arataka and how much time he spent with him learning how to handle his powers. Yusuke Sakurai suddenly appears at the back and slashes Arataka with his sword, causing Arataka to collapse in front of Mob. When Ritsu Matsu finds Arataka laying in front of Mob, he has a dreadful feeling of something bad, since Mob wouldn't be able to manage it. Mob, trying to overcome the situation, still doesn't want to injure them, so he resolves to delegate all of his authority to his master. Arataka then stands up, shocking everyone because he must have died as a result of the katana strike. Like a child's game, Arataka takes the lead and manages everyone's attack, which later appears due to Mob's powers being transferred into his master. In the end, Ishiguro attacks, which gets managed by Sho Suzuki, who easily beats him. Man, Ishiguro made me cry when his mask got removed. However, Matsuo comes up with his only spirit left, but Dimple emerges from his jar and knocks him out cold. Shinji Komodo decides to reveal the truth about framing Tenga Onigawara and talks to him, who already knows the truth and is now okay with it. Teru calls Kenji Mitsuda and the Kid Espers from Awakening Lab and wants them to become strong with them, to which they accept the offer. Girl Esper, after seeing Teru, a hot boy, blushes. Love is in the air. Thus, Dimple visits Arataka, and after having a bit of conversation, Arataka decides to take Dimple for his help. Sho returns to the 7th Division HQ to find his phone, where he talks to the leader, who later appears to be his father. So he was all confident because of his father's post. On television, Arataka finds a reward on Tsuchinoko and calls Mob to find it, but ends up collecting mushrooms. He leaves believing Tsuchinoko doesn't exist, without realizing the defeated monster was one. And it all ends on a delicious mushroom feast. And that's the end of the video. As always, if you liked what you saw, subscribe to the channel. I'll be uploading a lot of videos just like this, so I'll see you in the next one.